Hey guys, how are all of you beautiful people? Hope you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next part of Reborn in My Hero Academia with cheats. Where a man is reborn in the world of My Hero Academia and forced to bear the burdens of his predecessors. Thankfully he has a solid quirk and an enchanted gift to see him through. Watch as he nukes the world timeline down the shitter and dominates his Hero Academia. Hope you like the video. Let's start. The next day, as Class B joined us, our training began in the true sense of the word, with me being assigned to increase the number of eyes I could project and the distance I could project them to. Now, I could see through the damn planet, and in nova form, I could even see past the edges of the universe. This was a piece of cake for me. All I had to do was pretend to be tired every day after training and then improve a tiny bit. And so, that is exactly what I did. The whole day, I spent leisurely, and by the end of the first day, I even got all the blood samples from the pussycats and with a phone call teleported them to Haruto. As the day came to an end, we returned to the camp building tired, only to find the dinner ingredients spread out on a table in small mountains. "What's this?" Zero asked. "At least learn to make your own food." Pixie and Ragdoll twirled with smug smirks as they answered. "Yesterday we told you that today is the last day we cook for you," Pixie said. "And we weren't kidding," Ragdoll added. "You all look exhausted." Ragdoll laughed, mocking us. "But that doesn't mean you can make any old sloppy cat food. It's true that part of saving someone is filling their stomachs and soothing their spirits, especially during disasters. That's UA for you. No opportunities wasted. Let's make the most delicious curry in the world, everyone," Tida said. "You're definitely reading too much into it. It's probably just courtesy, as a part of us using their faculties. That said, it's only right. As they say, when in Rome," I said, activating remote control and projecting my eyes across the outdoor kitchen, peeling, chopping and assigning the right amount of condiments in order, finishing the prep in seconds as the rest of the students watched bug-eyed. "Momo, lighter," I ordered, as Momo pulled out her book and produced one. I swept with it across the hearths, lighting them up, putting the utensils in their place. With that done, I pretended to be dead tired after, and added, "There. I've done my part. 3 different splits of prep work," I said, pointing at the 3 piles of ingredients. "Mild, tasty, extra spicy. Do the rest, I'm gonna get a nap. And save an extra spicy for me." I slumped in a pile against one of the picnic tables and pretended to fall asleep as the rest of them got to work. Deku ran into the building and brought a blanket back, draping it over me, as the girls owed. "Oh. He's definite hell to catch. So many good guys this term. I can't decide." Pixie Bob squealed at the sight. "He's taken too," Ragdoll replied, pointing at Eureka, who was staring at the two with a happy blush. "TCH. All the good ones get taken by the harlots," Pixie muttered under her breath. As the food was prepared, Deku nudged me awake. Haru-chan, Haru-chan. It's time for dinner," he said. "5 more minutes, Mama," I replied. Deku sighed, before pinching me awake. "Yoch!" I cried, as I swung awoke, hitting Deku's chin with my head, sending him tumbling. "Yatatata!" Deku cried, rubbing his chin. "Sorry," I said, "but it's partly your fault too, Deku. Shouldn't have pinched me. There's no other way to wake you up. You sleep like a bear. Remember that training camp we did in the mountains?" Our tent flooded up to the heels and you still kept on sleeping. I had to kick you awake that time. Deku whined, as he took a seat beside me. Kirishima chuckled beside us. You guys sure are best friends. I hope I can have friends like that someday, he said. I wrapped my hand around his shoulder and replied. You already do, though, don't you? I said, pointing at us. Really? He asked. Sure. Deku replied, with a smile, taking a mouthful of curry rice and giving off an odd expression. Isn't it good? I asked. It is, but why don't you try it yourself and see? Deku answered. Me and Kirishima took a spoonful and tasted it, as I realized the problem. It's not bad, but I wouldn't buy it in a restaurant. Kirishima said. Yeah. It's probably because of the water. It tastes different here, more, I don't know, moldy, or like hard water but with less calcites. I explained. Don't say that, it's rude. Taida butted in. Yo Momo, you eat a lot, huh? Mina asked. Yeah. My quirk turns lipids into various atoms to create things. So the more I eat the more I can make. Momo replied. It's like poop then, huh? Zero commented. Momo looked at him, aghast, and dropped her spoon, sulking in a corner. Apologize. Gyro shouted, slapping Zero. I'm sorry. Zero cried. On the side, Mandalay called out to Kota. Kota, it's time for dinner. Kota. Kota, on the other hand, ignored her and walked off into the forest. This troublesome kid. Humph. Pixie said. Don't worry. I said, if Kota won't come to the food, then I'll take the food to Kota. Would you? Thanks. Mandalay said, smiling as I emptied my plate, shoving the rest of the curry into my mouth, before piling some in a pair of big bowls, and running off after him. As I reached the cliff face from yesterday, Kota spotted me. You hungry, 'cause I brought some chow? I said, walking over. How'd you find this place? He shouted. What, is this supposed to be a secret base? How cute. I teased. Yes. Now get out of my hideout. He cried. Sure, but before that you should eat. It's good for you. Don't you wanna grow up strong and healthy and get all the chicks? I said. No. I'm fine. I don't need to eat. He said. Yes you do. I replied. No, I don't. Yes you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. I said calmly. No, I don't. No, you don't. I added. Yes, I do. Kota cried back. Great. Here you go. I said, handing him the bowl, as realization dawned on him. Why you? You tricked me. Kota whined, stomping his feet on the ground in annoyance. This is why I don't like heroes. You're all liars. Hey. Same here, little buddy. I don't like heroes neither. I said, giving him a fist bump. Wait, what? Kota said, stunned into inaction, like a Jizu statue. But you're training to be a hero. He said. Yeah, so that I can end hero society once and for all. I want to make sure the world is so safe, that no one has to be a hero in the future. I explained. You're weird. Kota shouted, snatching the bowls from my hands and taking them to the cave to eat, as I ruffled his hair affectionately. As he ate, I looked at the stars, looming in the sky, shimmering beautifully. If I was in Nova form right now, I could have plucked them out of the sky and probably destroyed the planet by running out of energy. I chuckled at the sort of apocalypse my morbid curiosities could lead the world to. Looking back at Kota, I remembered his parents. Poor sod, probably has it worse than Deku in some ways. Not that having that spineless mother did Deku much good, but still. Your parents, they were the water hose, weren't they? I asked. Did Mandalay tell you? He asked, annoyed. No. I figured it out. I replied, it was an unfortunate accident. Shut up. Don't talk as if you know what it's like. He said. Everyone's crazy, calling each other stupid names, like heroes and villains, killing each other, talking about quirks and stuff. It's all because they were showing off like that. It ended up like that, stupid. Yup. That's why I'm going to make sure that no one has to go through what happened to you. I'll end the age of heroes, and of villains, once and for all. Just you wait, Kota, wait and watch me. I said, patting his back, as he sniffled in anger. Yep. You better. He said, choking back sobs. Then in the middle of the night, I got the frantic call. Darling. There's a problem. We can't find Eri. Imiko cried. Fuck. What happened? I asked. I don't know. Mom just woke up for a glass of water and saw Eri missing. We didn't even see or hear her leave. Please come back. Imiko pleaded. I get it. I'll be back in a couple of hours. And I'll return with Eri. Talk to you later, bye. I said, hanging up the call. Using Laplace Jr. and found out her location. The answer came up as the worst fucking choice. Jakku. Fucking Jakku. How the actual fuck did she end up in Jakku? That fucking hive of the Paranormal Liberation Front. Originally, I was going to leave them alone till the war arc popped off so that AFO could break out Tartarus and start the Chaos Era, making me the new world leader after I kill him and replace him with a puppet. But now, oh boy, now. If they harm a single hair on my Eri, I'll give them the Premier Dracula treatment. Spike through the arse and out the mouth, with a side of Bolton flaying. I flew straight to the town at Mach 100, causing hypersonic booms that ripped through the ozone and shook the lands. That was going to take a toll on the planet. I was sure that the government would be looking for the source of this shit. Too bad for them, I was in Nova form now, and less than a blur on their radar. I appeared in front of the front's compound, shredding the inorganic material down to the atom with a flick of my wrist, gathering it into a ball the size of a skin cell by eliminating the space between protons and electron, superimposing space in a sort of gravitational field puff pastry. I found Eri, within Yotoskans, and activated my zone skill, Flip-Flop Prison World, as the golden bands of my ability flipped, appearing on Eri and me but imprisoning the world. Now, out of phase with reality, I considered for a moment whether to eliminate the PLF now or let them be for later. In an instant I scanned the memories of every person in the city. Apparently, they had found Eri in Hamamatsu and someone had approached her only to be disappeared. That clued them in on her abilities and they tried to capture her for her powers as a weapon against hero society. A deep rage bubbled in me. Fuckers. I ought to vaporize this damn town off the world map. No. That'd be a mercy. That's right. I'll just wait till they are done being useful idiots. Then they get Shrike D for the rest of eternity. I put together their base in a hurry and wiped their memories of Eri as the timer of Nova was running out. I teleported away, with Eri in hand and reached the farmhouse, phasing back into reality with the force of a 10,000 megaton nuke, whose force I instantly shunted into the Mariana Trench's depths, as earthquakes raged outwards, widening the trench by a whole 11 miles and collapsing multiple shelves to dust and crumbs. I dropped to the ground, as Imiko and my parents ran out meeting me in the garden. "You found her. Where was she?" my mother asked. "Just at the Hamamatsu station," I said, as Eri shook her head, still dizzy from the consequent dematerialization and materialization. "Eri-chan, are you okay?" my mother asked her. Eri nodded gingerly, holding in vomit, as Imiko rubbed her back, comforting her. "Did someone kidnap her?" my father asked. "No. That's the odd thing. She was all alone," I lied, sending a signal to Eri, who nodded, going along with my lie. "So she ran away from home?" Imiko asked. "Do you hate us that much, Eri-chan?" my mother asked her, teary-eyed and hurt. Eri nodded in disagreement. "Then why?" my father pushed. "I'm cursed," she muttered in almost a whisper. "Eri," I said. "It's true. I'm cursed. Everywhere I go, people get hurt. Just 2 days ago, Papa, you got hurt. Even Haruto got hurt playing with me today. I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me." Eri sobbed, hiccuping in between. "Eri-chan. We'd never think of you like that," my mother said, as Imiko hugged Eri tight and kissed her head affectionately. "Oh, you adorable little fluff nugget. You're not cursed. You're a blessed little girl," Imiko said, wiping her tears with her cuffs. "And more than that, you're my blessed little girl," I added. "But hick Papa, your eye," she cried. I lifted my eye patch, showing her my healed stitches, and pointed out. "Don't worry about it, see? They're all healed up. Besides, your Papa's immortal. Nothing can kill me," I said, laughing haughtily. "But Papa," Eri protested mid-sob. "No buts. You're not cursed, and that's final." "Why?" "Because I say so. And whatever Papa says is true, okay?" I said, kissing Eri on her forehead, as she nodded. "So say it with me now, I'm not cursed." "Go on, say it," I said. Yes. I'm not cursed," Eri said hesitantly. "Good. And if you don't believe me, then here, I'll do a little magic to make the curse go away," I said, creating light particles with burst, showering her with them, their dazzling flashes brightening up her eyes like 1,000 stars in the sky. Rubbing her head, bobbing it round and round, I chanted. "Curse, curse go away, never come back another day." Then with a flash, Eri shimmered bright, and a warm fuzzy feeling settled in her heart, calming her down and filling her with an ocean of unbridled love and affection. Eri jumped up and hugged me tight, crying happily. "I want a hug too, Papa." Haruto cried as he jumped on me, and we came together for a giant family hug, Haruto wrapping around us with his arbor vines. That night, I returned to the camp, unseen, unheard, unnoticed, and fell asleep, genuinely exhausted for once. Finally, it was the 3rd day of the camp, and from what my bomber clone was telling me, the attack was coming tonight. And I was hyped. If this whole thing goes well, I'll be done with my plan by the end of the year. Of course, that would require careful machinations to be put in place. It also means I can't stop the League's attack today. Not if I want to drag out AFO to get his quirk. But that aside, it was time to train, and as they gathered up in the field, Aizawa-sensei strode out. Now, remember all of you, don't lose focus and move faster. No matter what you're doing, you should be aware of where you came from. Always keep in mind why you're sweating and why you're being nagged. Not to mention, all of you have to work harder. In your batch of 40, only one student passed with full marks, Haru Shikimori. By the end of the training camp, I expect you to catch up to him. That's not fair, he's got an overwhelmingly powerful quirk. Of course he got full marks. Mina complained. If you had his quirk, would you be able to defeat 3 teachers alone? Aizawa-sensei replied, shooting the protest down. No. But. Mina muttered, before yawning. Sorry, I'm just sleepy. I didn't think the remedial classes would go on till 2 a.m. and the training starts at 7 a.m. so. She added, yawning again. Yeah, Zero. Commented, yawning soon after as the contagion spread, eliciting yawns from everyone around. Then reflect on why you are more tired than your peers. Aizawa-sensei said. More importantly, everyone, tonight we'll have a test of courage with the classes pitted against each other. After training hard, you can play hard. Pixie announced. The carrot and the stick. Oh, I forgot. Gyro groaned, I'm not good with scary things. Revelry in the dark. The resident Chuanibiao Birdbrain added. They're letting us do the regular camping stuff too, huh? Hiryu said, excited. I like the part where we are pitted against each other. I'll thoroughly humiliate Class 1A. Monoma cackled madly. Do your best right now. Pixie encouraged. Yes sir. Where I came from. Deku thought looking at Haru, by the forest cover, and notice a curious onlooker hiding in the shadows of the cliff face, observing him. Kota peeked from behind the rocks, looking at me like a hawk. Heh, that's Haru-chan for you. He thought as he returned to practicing. After the training was done and the dinner was had, the classes assembled for the test of courage. Now that we've filled our bellies, it's time for. Pixie said, only to be interrupted by Mina and the remedial crew. Test of courage. Mina shouted gleefully. We're gonna test it. Suddenly, bandages wrapped around them, dragging them away, as Aizawa-sensei cautioned them. Not you guys. The extra lessons group will be having their classes with me now. Your training during the day wasn't enough, so I have to use this time for it. You've got to be kidding me. Mina cried, even as the bandages mummified her. Nuuuuu. They moaned like banshees as they were dragged back into the building. That was something. Well then, on to the test of courage. The 2 classes will take turns scaring each other. Class A is going first, so Class B, go and prepare to scare the living daylights out of them. Pixie said. As for Class A, you're going to split into pair of 2, by lotto. Come here and pick. Ragdoll added, pulling out a box. As we went picking the numbers, I got paired up with Shinso of all people. Ah hey. He said, shifting awkwardly. Hey. How you doing, bud? I said, patting his shoulder. Fine. I just wanted to thank you for the. He said, as I slapped his back with the force of a dump truck. Ouch. He cried, what was that for? There's no thanks in a friendship. I answered, smiling brightly. You're a fucking weirdo, you know that. He said, as a small smile threatened to break through his quivering lips. What a tsund. How cute. I guess that's why Kota's smitten with you. You really are as good as the news made you out to be. Mandalay said behind us. Auntie. he protested as Mandalay ruffled his hair. I told you you'd find your hero one day, she said, enthusiastically. As the duos ahead of us went onto the path, I sensed the portals open up in the distance, as a purple mist began to lightly pervade the forest, another section along the cliff face lighting up with blue flames. Yes. Finally, I was almost getting bored to death. But no more. It's time for some action. I looked at Mandalay and asked her over to a corner. What? She asked. It's villains. They're here. I whispered. What, how many? She asked, calming herself. There's one villain setting fire to the forest up north of here, and another one spreading poison gas to the southwest. There could be more. Please send a message to everyone to retreat back to the camp building, I explained. And how do you know that? She asked suspiciously. I am training even as we speak, so I have eyes projected onto the cliff face and around the forest. Look there, on the tree, and the cave entrance up there, I pointed out. Mandalay looked at the eyes and nodded understandingly. All right. I'll inform them, she said. And ask Aizawa-sensei to grant us permission to use our quirks. It might come in clutch later, especially for those caught up in the poison fog, I added. Okay. She replied telepathically before shouting out loud. Everyone, get back to the camp building right now. Villains are attacking. What? Everyone cried out in shock, as I shook Shinso back to reality. Shinso, be alert. Your quirk will be very useful in this engagement. Why, yes, of course, he said, shaking his head. Pixie, escort the students back, Mandalay ordered, when all of a sudden, a pink energy cloud pulled Pixie off her feet and into the forest, as a wet squelching sound followed by a sharp crack rang out, blood pooling by the shrubbery. Two men, one in a plaid shirt and the other in a Hawaiian, walked out, pants soaked in blood, carrying a giant magnet. Magn. Tiger growled. Wanted for 3 counts of murder and 19 counts of aggravated assaults. As for you, who are you? Mandalay asked. The name's Hijikata, but you can call me Tsabomba, the fat man in the Hawaiian shirt shouted, pumping his fist in the air as they detached from his arms, rocketing towards Tiger, all the while swelling up. Tiger raised his guard and kicked the swollen fists out of the air, only for them to explode on his leg, turning it into bloody mush, permanently amputating him. Yaawagsh! Tiger cried as he fell to the floor, writhing in pain. On the other end of the field, Tsabomba's hands had already begun to regenerate, as small stumps appeared on his severed arms, his belly shrinking noticeably. Within seconds his arms were back in full capacity. The students screamed in terror as they ran away from the clearing in a panic and ended up heading straight into the forest. All according to plan. Immediately Mandalay turned to me and handed me Kota, who was stunned in shock and fear, on the verge of tearing up. Uncle Tiger! He cried, even as I tucked him under my arm and nodded, running towards the campsite. On the sly, I projected an eye on a nearby tree and froze the villains in place. Take care of them quickly, I advised Mandalay, the restraints will disappear when I'm out of range. So you're the one we were warned about? Shikinori Haru, Magn interjected. It's Shikimori. Get it right, jackass, I shouted, still running off with Kota. You're not going anywhere. You're too dangerous to our plan. If nothing else, I'll at least keep you here, Magn said, activating his power on the crippled Tiger and his magnet first, bringing him clashing against his magnet. Then with a flick, Magn polarized Tiger against Tsar Bomber, launching him at me like a cannonball. You wish. I mocked, and immobilized Tiger in midair as Mandalay knocked Magn out with a flying kick. Then, as she turned to target Bomber, she hesitated, remembering what happened to Tiger. Ha. Go on, you bitch. Kick me, kick me. I'll blow your legs right off, just like your friend over there. Come here. Let me make you into a cute little nugget. Bomber cackled villainously. Man, he was just born to be an ugly bastard, wasn't he? That performance almost made me proud. Scratch that, I'm genuinely proud of him. He's doing better than I ever expected, especially with the bare-bones trance program I gave him. I guess he'll do just fine. What's important right now is for me to get Kota to the campsite before I take off Muscular. Why Muscular? Because no other hero here has the power to take on Muscular. Not even Deku. But more importantly, because Muscular is too much of a wildcard, something I can't tolerate messing with my plans. And with my meddling with Kota this time, he might very well escape the camp raid, what with no one spotting him until it was too late. As I ran past the caves and train up ground, I sensed something barreling through the skies towards me. Muscular. Shit. If only I hadn't spent my reserves yesterday searching for Eri, I could have spotted him reaching beforehand. But now, I was only using my psychic scan intermittently in short-ranged bursts. I didn't have the juice for the long-range ones. Or rather, I didn't want to risk a brain aneurysm by pushing my burst and trance to my regular 30 km sensing and telekinetic range. That didn't mean I couldn't defeat him, of course. I could still wring his head off his shoulders like a rotten grape and reshape his biology into a human toilet. Just that I wouldn't. Why not? Because it'd be damn fucking suspicious if a villain this strong was found lying about like a puzzle set. It'd damn near reveal my true powers. And so I went with the old faithful. I projected an eye on the cave circuit's entrance, immobilizing Muscular moments before he hit the ground, just in case he tries to use the dust cloud trick. Not that it'd work anyway. Damn it. And here I thought I'd have some fun. He whined. Well, just you wait. I'll deal with you once I get Kota here to safety. I replied. Kota looked back at the villain and began to shake in fear. It's him. He killed my parents. Kota shouted, struggling to get out of my grasp. Kota. Calm down. I've already got him. He won't hurt anyone anymore. Just stick with me till we get back to camp, then I'll get Aizawa-sensei to arrest him. No. Let me go. I'll have my revenge. Kota said, biting my arm. Ouch. I said, dropping him. Instantly he ran back towards Muscular, peppering him with a spout of water. I turned to look at him and stopped him right in his tracks. That didn't stop him from water cannoning Muscular though. Let me go. Kota cried. Don't be an idiot, Kota. Come, let's go. I said. No. I'm going to kill him. Kota shouted with venomous rage. I sighed and slapped him hard across the face. You're going to kill him. Ha. And how exactly are you going to accomplish that? With your piss cannon. That shit's barely annoying him. If anything, it's probably refreshing for him, a nice face wash on a hot summer night. And don't go around deciding who you can and cannot kill, especially when you aren't powerful enough to even scratch them. I chastised. Kota began to weep openly, falling to the floor on his knees. What am I supposed to do then? Just let him go. He'll probably get away again. And then, he'll kill more people. And what about my parents? Don't they deserve justice? Kota shouted. Oh ho ho ho. Looks like you're the son of someone I've killed. Tell me, who's it? Who's the person I killed? Was it Hardcase? No, he was a bachelor. Maybe Lady Demetria. No, her hair was light blue. Oh. That's it. It was them, wasn't it? That couple who took my eye out. What were their names again, Water Hose or something? Muscular mocked. Lucky. I get to finish a set today then. A couple and their child, a family pack. Ha 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 ha. You shut up. I said, immobilizing his jaw shut. Kota, I didn't mean that. Of course you deserve justice and so do your parents, and I promise you this, Kota, Muscular will never hurt anyone, ever again. I said, walking up to the tendon-clad giant of a man and deactivated my binding, before activating remote control on my flesh. Muscular hit the ground and steadied himself, as I called out to Kota. Kota. Stand back and watch. I'll show you why he'll never be able to hurt anyone again. Muscular laughed in my face. You made a serious mistake letting me go, boy. Now die for me. He shouted, leveling a fist at me, the wind pressure from his blow causing my shirt to billow in the wind. At the last moment though his hand stopped millimeters from my face, bound with golden bands of light. Fucker! He cried, raising his other fist, rearing back, only to find it bound as well. You done? I asked, with a grim countenance, my most no-shit face on point. My turn then. With one smooth move, I raised my hand clad in telekinetic force and brought it down on his elbow, as a thundering crack sounded across the training field, sending Muscular stumbling, his hand bent and twisted 5 ways from Sunday, his flesh torn, and his bone exposed and shattered, bone shrapnel lying on the dirt floor, hanging onto his biceps by a thin string of muscle. Araha! Muscular cried out in pain. How did you do that? He asked, trying to reconnect his arm with his quirk. I could have severed it off completely, you know that. Why do you think I left it hanging, Muscular? Tell me. I said, coldly. As the realization dawned on Muscular, all color drained from his face, just in time for another chop from me, nearly dismembering his other arm. Go on. I said, recover. No. Please. I'll do anything, just please let me, he pleaded, only to have his artificial eye pressed into his skull. Meow! He cried out, panting, blood leaking from his eye and mouth. I said recover. Player ass. Muscular cried, tears leaking from his one remaining eye. Did you spare Kota's parents when they pleaded for their lives? Did you spare anyone else in your whole damn life? I asked. I Muscular muttered before he coughed up more blood and part of his cartilage. As I said, recover. I ordered. He nodded, as the smell of piss and shit colored the air. Muscles and tendons slowly knit themselves together on his body, reforming his hands into limp noodles, with his now shattered bones. Once more, I raised my hands and this time, I struck his shoulders, shattering his shoulders, collarbone and the top half of his ribs. Kyoke! He said, wheezing, as the bone fragments ripped into his lungs, shredding them apart. Within seconds he spat out blood and collapsed unconscious. I turned to Kota, who was looking at me, horrified, and said, there we go. See, now he won't be able to hurt anyone again. Hell, I'd be surprised if he even lived past this night, I said. Kota looked back at the broken, bleeding form of Muscular as a light returned to his eyes, a new resolve forming in his heart. Capitalizing on it, I explained. Sometimes to defeat evil, we must become ruthless. And when heroes and the system don't deliver any justice, the only justice you have is one that you get with your own two hands. That's why, Kota, remember, you must become powerful if you want to bring justice into the world, I said, patting his shoulder, looking him in the eyes. Yes, he said softly, nodding in agreement. Good. Now let's get you to safety. We don't want to worry Aunt Mandalay, do we? I said, picking him up and seating him on my shoulders. Yep, he said, smiling. Within minutes I made it to the camp building, carrying Kota on my back, even as my hands swelled up. And I let them swell up, restricting my regeneration. After all, the final blow to Kota was still left, wasn't it? The thing that convinced him of Deku's greatness in the anime. Being willing to sacrifice yourself to uphold your values. As soon as I reached the campsite, even before I saw it, I smelled it. The faint odor of parmesan, or alternatively, dead innards. By the door, lay a puddle of goo, disintegrating slowly, and beside it stood Aizawa-sensei, panting like a dog. Looks like the bee had already hit them here. Aizawa-sensei, what happened here? I asked, putting Kota down. Villains, what else? He snicked. How many others are still out there? I asked. Villains. At least 3. Students, almost all of them. Aizawa-sensei answered, as we moved into the classroom with everyone from the remedial classes. Hey! How's stuff out there? Mina asked. Bad, I said, leading Kota to a front seat. Aizawa-sensei, I'm going out. Could you look after Kota for a while? I said. No. He replied. Ha! I intoned. You're not going out. Leave it to us teachers. You need to rest. Sensei, there's an unknown amount of villains out there, the students are panicked, there's a cloud of poison gas creeping up on us and a villain with a flame quirk is burning out our escape routes. You need all hands on deck. I protested. All hands on deck, huh? And what help will these hands be? Aizawa-sensei said, grabbing my hands and pulling up the sleeves, revealing a bruised and battered arm. Didn't I tell you not to abuse your arms? Aizawa-sensei said. This. Why would you do this? Kota stuttered. I ruffled his hair affectionately, before answering. If I can't even convince a scared child to have faith in me, how will I convince the world to believe in me and my ideals? That's exactly why I won't allow you to fight. Aizawa-sensei interjected. Sensei, my powers work with my eyes, I won't need to fight. Clearly. Aizawa-sensei mocked, rolling his eyes. This was an exception. I replied. Oh, I can see that. You're not going anywhere. Aizawa-sensei ordered. Come on, I can end this problem in a minute. I still have eyes out there. Just take me near the poison fog, in my range, before it spreads too far, and we could save everyone easy peasy lemon squeezy. I insisted. Aizawa-sensei thought for a moment before answering. Fine. But you'll only use your immobilization quirk. And stay within reach. I can't protect you from afar. He said. Yes, sensei. I replied cheerfully. Quickly, we exited the campsite and returned to the test of courage, as I began to project eyes on every tree, stone and incline in my known range. As we neared the fog, I could feel it, 700 meters in front of us. 3 people, standing within 10 feet of each other. Projecting an eye over, I saw Kendo bleeding from her hands, a bullet wound, tearing through her left. With a quick check, I found the culprit and the gun with 3 bullets left in the chamber. Searching his body, I found another 5 in his coat pocket. Great. Gun acquired. I used remote control on this jacket, wrapping it around his gun, tearing off the buttons, and chucked it into the shrubbery nearby, before immobilizing him. From then it was just a matter of guiding the students out. Using my eyes to point the way out, I escorted the students back to the campsite before hiding the gun in Kota's cave with telekinesis. Once the students were back at camp, a head count began resulting in 2 students less. Shoto and Minter. That was beside the fact that Ragdoll was kidnapped too, likely for her mega useful quirk, search that allowed her to locate and understand the weaknesses of anyone she knew about. Why wasn't Bakugo kidnapped? Maybe it was because they already had an explosion user in Hijikata, or maybe it was the fact that my actions in the sports festival had basically relegated him to the role of a side character. Either way, Shoto was instead the one to get taken. Was it because I forced Shoto to reveal Endeavor's true nature in the sports festival? Likely, answered Laplace Jr. Dabi probably figured he could turn his brother's resentment towards Endeavor to twist him into the fold of the League. That still left one more question. Why Minter? He wasn't very good at anything. I asked Laplace Jr. again. Yup. It's cause of me all right. He was captured because of my performance in the stadium. With my fight against 9 of the top students, and their subsequent defeat, maybe the villains realized how useful movement restricting abilities are. After all, an enemy that can't hit you, is an enemy no more. But that brought forth another problem. With me knowing the bar's location, they'll likely move the abductees to another location. Thankfully, I had my own spy in the League, Hijikata. Not to mention, I already saw the chainsaw Nomu get tagged, so the Nomu storage facility was no worry either. Thus, the campsite raid came to an end, with Pixie Bob dead, Tiger crippled, and UA students kidnapped by the League, resulting in a PR victory for them, something the news media didn't fail to capitalize on. UA was reamed to all hell, the Pussycats' reputation was basically kaput, and they soon disbanded. For both UA and Hero Society, this was a colossal blow, exactly what I'd hoped to achieve. This time, with the Hideout Raid squad missing some of their best powerhouses in Pixie, Tiger and Gran Torino, All Might would likely lose to AFO. And when he went down, I'd get my prime opportunity to cement myself as the next symbol of peace, once and for all. All that would be left then would be to induce the war arc by late November and be done with my plans by year's end, an astonishing 1-month campaign to rule the world, leave my mark on the history of the world and maybe, just maybe, blimping on the Rob contract with a timeline reset, freeing me to roam the multiverse by the time New Year's rolled around. I looked at Deku with half-drooped eyes. Really? I asked. Yes. I won't fail again. I promised you this, Haru-chan, and what's a man who can't keep his promises? Deku said, resolutely. And you, Kirishima? I pointed at the boy by the foot of the bed. Isn't it obvious? I'm coming along. And so is Momo. Kirishima answered. This is something we should leave to the pros. This isn't the place for us to act, you idiots. Taida said. Yeah. Let's leave this to All Might. Aizawa-sensei's permission to fight at the training camp has been rescinded too. Yuga said. Aoyama's right. Even though I was the one that needed saving this time, I can't say this is the right thing to do. Takoyami added. Yeah. I understand your frustrations, but this is no time to act on our emotions. Shuji interjected. I still think this is a bad idea. Zuyu warned. So do I, Deku. I can understand. I trained him, we've pulled vigilante missions before. He knows how to go about it. You on the other hand are a complete amateur at this. I said. That's not what I meant, Taida said, before Kirishima interrupted him. You and Deku were amateurs too at some point of time. I'll learn on the job. Kirishima protested. There's a big difference between uncovering an illegal electronics market and fighting off the League of Villains, Kirishima. This is no joke. If we make a single mistake, it could mean death, in the literal sense. I said. It's a price I'm willing to pay. I wouldn't be a hero or a man if I just stood by and did nothing while my friends are in danger. Kirishima insisted. I sighed, shaking my head. Fine. But you follow orders, to the T. Got it? Yup. You can count on it. Kirishima replied cheerfully. Good. Who else is in? I asked. Momo, for one. As for the others, Kirishima said, looking at the rest of the class expectantly. Taida sighed and rubbed his temples. I'm coming too. Someone has to keep watch over you idiots. He said. I'm in too. Kaminari added. Anyone else? I asked. No one answered, as their faces betrayed their hesitation at vigilantism. I could understand that. A lot of them were from poor families, like Yurika, Shuji and Zuyu, while others were sheltered kids like Koda, Takoyami and Yuga. They wouldn't want to risk death for a problem the heroes would solve anyway. I see. That's okay. You don't need to risk your lives unnecessarily. I said. We don't mean to, you know. Mina replied. Yeah. I get it. It's fine. If too many of you had volunteered, I'd have rejected you anyways. The team couldn't be more than 8 people either way. It'd be too eye-catching. Not good for a covert rescue op. I assured as they breathed a sigh of relief. So what's the plan? Deku asked. That's fairly simple. We leave at 6 p.m., drop by an arcade, maybe do some shopping, play around for half an hour, then get to following the GPS signal. On the way, we'll take a detour, and stop by a restaurant for a quick bite. We'll follow the signal through the most crowded parts of the city before dipping past them into a relatively isolated part of town, and taking the back alleys the rest of the way. Bring cash, and keep your receipts from the mall, arcade and restaurant. If they don't offer a receipt, insist on getting one. Each and every one of us will have to get our own receipts to act as an alibi. Make sure they can't pin you with obstruction of justice or vigilantism. I explained. But isn't what we're doing exactly that? Kirishima asked. Yes. But for all practical purposes, we need to make sure to appear as if we stumbled into the situation. We need the relevant authorities to believe that us being at the scene of the crime was a mere coincidence. Just students out on the town, took a wrong turn, lost their way and happened upon the villains and then acted in self-defense. We don't want to ruin our hero careers after all, do we now? I replied. That's smart. Is that how you've been getting away with it all this time? Taida commented. Well, that and the pretense of amateur journalism. I replied. Then, we'll meet at 5:40, in the park opposite to the station. Deku suggested. Yeah. Now let me sleep for a while before the painkillers run out. Shoo. I said, throwing them out of the room. Come evening, I got an early discharge and made my way to the station, meeting up with the rest of the crew. You ready? I asked. You betcha. Kirishima replied. The receiver. Here. Momo said, handing me a small gadget. Good. Let's go. And remember the plan. We keep this slow, steady and quiet. Ideally, we'd want to rescue Shoto and Minta without raising a ruckus, but if worse comes to worst, we bail, with the two of them, full force, no matter the cost, understand? I asked. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I won't abandon my friends. Kirishima said. Neither would I. Kaminari added. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Taida muttered, defeatedly. Following the plan, we made our way carefully to the location on the GPS. It was the bar. What? Why didn't they change locations? Surely they wouldn't be so foolish as to risk capture. Did they believe I wouldn't reveal their location to the police? No. Shigaraki may be a whiny little man-child, but he was by no means that dumb. Something was up here. I scanned the building with my psychic sense, and shook like a rattlesnake. No. That can't be. I need to see it with my own two eyes. Momo. Can you make a pair of binoculars? I requested. Sure. Just a minute. She replied, handing me a pair. I climbed through the air until I could get a good view into the warehouse by the bar. With remote control I broke the warehouse window and projected my eyes into the building, spreading throughout without effort. Yup. There's the Nomus, the corpse of Ragdoll, Moonfish munching on her remains, usual, expected stuff. Progressing further, I saw it, confirming my worst fears. Shoto, Minta, bound to chairs in the bars, and beside them another figure, bloody and bruised, lying limp, barely breathing. My mother. Rage roiled within me like lava, the binoculars in my hands crushed to pieces in anger. The bastards. I'll kill them. I'll kill them all. How dare they touch my mother? Even if she wasn't my real mother, just thinking of harming someone I cared about was a death sentence. And they needed reminding as to who was the one with the unsurpassed upper hand here. They needed to learn of their place in this relationship. With a thought I twisted the head off of Moonfish, his eyes filled with confusion as the light faded from his eyes. A mercy the rest of the league wouldn't receive. I used biokinesis and began to twist their internal organs, slowly grinding them against each other, tearing their linings as they screamed in pain, vomiting blood. Yes, suffer. Suffer, you bastards. Then, just as I was about to reverse sear their skin off, the heroes arrived. And with their arrival, the league began a whole new round of vomiting, only this time, they vomited black goo, cocooning their bodies, teleporting them away, just in time for the heroes to attempt their capture. Mount Lady stuffed her foot into a pickup truck, lifting her leg and smashing through the building, crushing half the warehouse to rubble as All Might burst into the bar. Surrender now, villains. Why? Because I am he what? All Might stuttered mid-sentence, noticing the blood on the floor, as the villains disappeared into the black goo, followed by the hostages. Fine. I'll let you go for now. This is not the time for petty emotional tantrums. With a distant string of trance, burst and healing rise, I stabilized my mother's condition, before jumping back to the ground, gesturing the others to retreat. It's time to become the new symbol of peace. What did you see? Why's Mount Lady here? Kirishima asked. The hostages aren't here, but the heroes are. They'll take care of the villains. We need to bail. Split up, gang. Me and Deku will go this way, I said, pointing towards the Kamino Heights. Whereas you guys head back to Central Square and rendezvous at Mitsutoshi Megastore. Go. Yes. Finally. Taida replied, dragging the other three off and away. I looked at Deku and nodded. He got the hint. Slowly, we creeped away from the warehouse, as Mount Lady's gasp rang out across the township. She gingerly picked up the half-eaten remains of Ragdoll and wrapped them in a funeral white cloth, choking back vomit. From 2 blocks away, a scream could be heard. Shoto. Looks like Endeavor was here. Good. If I can get him crippled now, then the Supernomu in a couple of weeks should deal with him fairly well. He wouldn't die, of course. That would be expecting too much of the Nomu. But he would certainly be forced to retire and disband his agency. This fight was therefore a very important one. Playing my cards right, I could very well break apart Hero Society just today. But then again, things don't always how according to plan, do they now? Even as we circled the residential township, avoiding the distracted guards, we made it to the top of a nearby building with a great vantage point. From afar, I could see the League arrive, emerging from a veritable waterfall of black goo gushing out the second floor of the half of the warehouse that was still intact. League of Villains. You're under arrest. Surrender immediately. Best Jeanist announced, jumping up into the air, landing a web of carbon fiber jeans strings, with a flourish, his web shooting forward and enveloping Hijikata, Shigaraki, Kurogiri and twice, before Dabi burned it off with a fierce blue torrent of flame, rising into a burning column, even as Dabi bled from his stitches. Fuck off! Dabi shouted in anger, as twice got to cloning everyone, increasing their forces. My tactics that Hijikata taught them. Why would I help the League become stronger? Because when I defeat the League that took down Hero Society, I'll be the inviolable hero, a god among men, the true savior of the world. And to that end, I can't have them losing that easy. Haru-chan. The hostages, they're there. And it's. Deku cried out. Yes. I know. It's my mother. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. You need to focus on evacuating and rescuing people from the vicinity. Leave the League to me. I ordered. Deku hesitated, open and closing his mouth as if to say something, before he nodded solemnly, trusting in my abilities. What did they do to her? Orca asked, looking at Ragdoll's corpse. Sorry about that. She had such a great quirk, I couldn't resist taking it. A voice came from within the shadows of the collapse building. After my body became like this, I also depleted a lot of what I had stocked up. AFO added. Are you with the League? Orca asked. A light. Someone get a Mount Lady called out, before a wrecking ball-sized hole tore open on her stomach, guts spilling out. Quake. She spat out blood and chunk of her entrails, as her quirk deactivated, shrinking her to normal size. You. Stop right there. Don't move or we'll shoot. Orca shouted, raising a hand to signal the officers standing behind him, only to have that hand get blown off with a wild and powerful gust of wind. What was that? A cop cried out. Air shot. A very useful quirk in dealing with pests such as you. AFO spoke out in a tone reminiscent of a homeowner looking at raccoons in their dumpster at 3 a.m. in the morning. Clutching his arm, Orca wrapped his bleeding stump with his coat before he leapt at AFO, screaming ultrasonic waves. AFO staggered, bleeding through his nose, before receiving Orca's punch head-on. Impact recoil. AFO smiled, his head turning at an unnatural angle from the punch, before he snapped it back and began recovering, albeit slowly. Orca, on the other hand, fell to the ground, the full force of his punch being turned back upon him. AFO created a rivet in his palm, shooting it at Orca point blank, only for Orca to dodge it last second, with the help of Genist. With a casual pace, he walked out of the shadows, the click-clacking of his shoes against the concrete echoing in the horrified silence of the onlookers. Without a moment's hesitation, Best Genist tightened the fibers around AFO and trapped him in his own suit, binding his arms and legs behind his back with a flick of his hand. Suddenly, bolts of red and black lightning sparked across AFO's body, sending Genist and the others flying, in a fit of convulsions. Not to be outdone, Genist controlled the fibers around his body and puppeteered himself back into form, ready to strike back, only to have his stomach blown out with an air cannon. How, who, are, why, he sputtered as he fell on his back, into a puddle of his own innards. As expected of the number 4 hero, Best Genist. AFO clapped slowly, almost mockingly, like a god looking upon revolting ants. Even when I thought I had gotten everyone in my first barrage, you survived and even managed to save your fellow heroes. And with that mediocre quirk even. Genist, gurgling on blood, raised what looked to be an accusatory finger at AFO. AFO intoned, as steel coils wrapped around him from behind, one of them piercing him through the shoulder, anchoring the coils to his body. You think this will hold me? AFO asked, flexing his muscles, as the steel creaked mightily and with a snap and crackle, shattered into a dozen pieces, falling to the ground, some distance away. Even as AFO pulled out the coiled steel rods out of his shoulders, Deku activated full cowling, almost on instinct, and prepared to jump in, as I grabbed him firmly by the shoulder. No. Let me do it. Save the heroes and the officers. You are faster and their lives matter more than his capture, I said. Deku ground his teeth in frustration as he shot forth, grabbing the injured heroes and leapt away at full power, even as I ran down the now slanting tower and jumped off, landing across the block from him. Where do you think you're going, Izuku Midoriya? AFO called out, shooting at Deku, who avoided the shots to the best of his ability, being grazed in the calves by some, while others nearly carved out bullet holes by his ribcage. While he was distracted, I stopped his hands in place, even as Deku changed directions and vanished into the distance. Now, I just had to wait till All Might fought him. Shikimori Haru. I knew you'd come here. Your little experiment. He has quite the selection, doesn't he? I met him when I caught your mother. It was a shame he escaped. But fear not. I'll gut him the same as you, all in due time. He shouted, his voice echoing throughout the township, as residents peeked out their windows in fear. Still going to hide like a rat? You do know that I can see you, right? He said, pivoting his head towards me, slowly and deliberately like a horror movie monster. Just then, with a bang, he arrived. The man, the myth, the legend. Fear not, citizens. Why? Because I am here. With a smile like the sun, his hair blowing gently in the wind, All Might rose from his crouching position and struck a confident pose. Man. Even I have to admit, that was fucking cool. In capital letters. The bastard sure knew how to make an entrance. You're here after all, aren't you? AFO said, turning to All Might, summoning the hostages by his side along with the League. I'll have you give everything back, all for one. All Might shouted, landing a punch on AFO, as shockwaves blew out the nearby structures, cracking the buildings as the already evacuating residents got thrown off their feet. This warehouse is a little more than 5 kilometers from the bar. It was easily 30 seconds after I sent the Nomus there before you arrived here. You've gotten weaker, All Might. So tell me then, how exactly are you going to accomplish that? Are you going to kill me again? AFO mocked. What about you? What's with that industrial mask you've got on? Aren't you overexerting yourself? All Might snapped back, getting ready to launch himself at AFO. I won't make the same mistake I did 6 years ago. I'll take young Shoto back. And this time, I'll make sure to throw you in prison for good. That's so much to do though. It'll be tough for the both of us. AFO said, and raised a hand, which proceeded to swell up, arcs of red and black lightning crackling along its length. Just as All Might shot forward, a storm erupted from AFO's hand, launching him back through a whole sandlot's worth of skyscrapers, even shattering 2 of them. In the distance, I could sense a news helicopter making its way over to the scene. Air cannon and spring-like limbs. Plus strength enhancer ×3 and kinetic booster ×4. That's a fun combination. Maybe I'll try adding in a couple more enhancer types. AFO commented nonchalantly, as Deku returned by my side. Deku. My mother first. I'll hold him. Go 100%. I ordered. Deku nodded, and prepared OFA 100%, even as his muscles began to bruise visibly. I projected my eyes onto the scene and nodded back at Deku. With a fart like poof, Deku vanished up the building, leaving a crater on the ground. Instantly, I immobilized the entire League, and Deku appeared beside the hostages, leaving a blazing meteoric trail on the shattered concrete, as he came to a halt in front of my mother. Picking her up, in a princess carry he made to leave, and Shoto kicked Minta over. Take him too. He cried out. Deku nodded, grabbing Minta's hair, sticking him to his body, before he jumped away and back towards me. Take them to the hospital. I'll bring Shoto over. I added. Before he left, Deku turned to the direction All Might had just been thrown to and gulped. Haru-chan, don't fight him head-on. I know. Now go. I replied, running low, cover to cover, nearing AFO. The black goo returned as AFO teleported everyone out of my bindings. Even as All Might burst through the rubble across the city, AFO used his quirk, forcefully activating Kurogiri's warp gate, attempting to teleport the League and Shoto away. Not so fast. I immobilized Shoto on the ground. TCH. Shigaraki grunted. Leave. I'll bring him back. AFO said, pushing Shigaraki into the portal. You have to come too, sensei. Shigaraki insisted, grabbing onto the hems of AFO's coat. No. Leave now. And remember Tamura. Think constantly. You still have much room to grow. I won't let you get away. All Might shouted, landed a punch on the distracted AFO, sending him flying across the field, as Shigaraki jumped into the portal in a panic. You can't fight to your fullest while a student of yours is here, can you now? AFO taunted, rivets and bone spikes growing out of his body, as he clashed with All Might. Punch after punch, they matched might and wits, the shockwaves of their battle ringing out across the town, shaking the very earth I stood on, bringing the building around them crumbling down. A true clash of titans. And yet, with each bout, All Might seemed to wane in both strength and physique, the wear on his body becoming ever visible. You never recovered from your injury, did you? AFO asked. No wonder you're getting weaker. That and the fact that you gave away your gift to an unworthy successor, then wiry little boy. He is not unworthy. All Might screamed, he is a better man than you'll ever be. Oh, is he? And what about you? The great symbol of peace. You felled my comrades in great numbers, single-handedly bringing an end to my rule. But there's still one person you couldn't save. AFO replied. Do you know who Tamura is? Who he really is? He is a criminal. One that you raised and lead down the wrong path. All Might cried, uppercutting the villain. Oh. You didn't notice. The similarity, the relation. Ah ha 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 ha. AFO laughed in his deep, booming voice. What relation? All Might asked with mounting concern and horror. Who is that man? What is his real identity? He demanded. Tamura Shigaraki. That's the name I gave him when I found him, all alone, bloody, bruised, broken. A pitiful child abandoned by all, no heroes to save him. Do you know what his real name is, All Might? It's Tenko. Shimura Tenko. The grandson of your mentor, Shimura Nana. AFO revealed loudly, as the news crew focused in on him. No. You're lying. That cannot be. All Might cried, faltering, falling to his knees, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. Have you known me to lie? AFO replied, and in one line, nearly shattered All Might's will, filling him with regret and guilt, as he gloated. The muscles began to fade away into steam, as his time in his muscled form was coming to an end. Then, beyond all expectations, he stood back up. Even so, even if I failed to save him, that doesn't mean I'll let you harm another innocent soul. In fact, I'll even save Tamura himself, even if it's already too late. Because All Might buffed back up, planting his foot firmly forward. All Might's arm regained its firmness, as he set his dislocated bone in place without so much as a flinch. All Might launched himself at AFO with a massive full-powered punch. Hero. Their punches met as AFO activated impact recoil, crushing All Might's entire arm, being himself literally disarmed too, as his bone spikes and rivets shattered into fine dust, and his arm ripped off, flying away. Taking this chance, I telekinetically grabbed the arm, wiping away AFO's will from it, before tucking it away in an abandoned building 4 kilometers away. To everyone's surprise though, AFO regrew his entire arm, clearly having stolen the USJ No Muse regeneration somehow. He had deep pockets and even deeper connections, it seems. In this exchange, All Might came off the loser overall, despite his earlier bravado. As he knelt on one foot, his arm one twisted 2 ways off the hook, and nearly purple from bruising, AFO stood back up, exhausted and concussed, spitting out blood. I only came here to save Tamura, but you insisted on fighting. He said. So let me see you out, symbol of peace. He raised his hand towards the news chopper, pulling it into position, and with another, waved away the dust cloud covering All Might's decrepit figure. In a booming voice, he shouted. Let the world see. This is how your symbol of peace dies. On his knees. He grabbed All Might by his hair and raised his hand in a chopping motion. The reporter gasped, as did the viewers all across the city and likely the country. I could hear their prayers and chants, telling All Might to get back up and defeat the villain like always, unfortunately to no avail. AFO's hand fell like an executioner's blade, as the world seemed to come to a standstill. A golden band of rings emerged around his hand, holding him in place, inches from All Might's neck. Not so fast, villain. You forgot one crucial detail. Where one hero falls, 10 shall rise in his place. And if our symbol of peace has fallen, then I'll just have to pick up his slack and become the next symbol of peace. I announced, appearing between him and All Might, picking him up in my arms and moving him away from the villain. Finally, after waiting for so long. It's showtime, baby. You think you can do what the symbol of peace couldn't? AFO mocked, teleporting out of my binds. Oh, I know it, fuckface. I fired back with a smirk, pulling out my enchanted key from my pocket. Aren't you cocky? He laughed, and launched an air cannon at me. I dodged it, effortless sidestepping its trajectory, binding him with immobilization. Using my key, I planted air barriers around me, just as he teleported out, appearing behind me. I leapt away as my air barriers shattered with a single hit. More barriers then. Even as AFO bum rushed me, I created arrays of barriers around me, retreating constantly, projecting eyes all around the crater and the surrounding buildings. With the setup done, I stood in place, the crackle of shattering barriers a melody to my ears. AFO's fist arrived within reach of me, I immobilized it. HNNGH. He groaned, and teleported away. Using remote control, I clad my flesh as lines of blue circuited my skin. Then he came, from above, shooting a storm at me, trying to crush me into the ground. I erected another array of barriers, and just stood there, smirking mockingly at him. How weak. Don't you have anything stronger, Baldy? You'll see. He replied, his muscles swelling up, red lightning arcing around him. He disappeared from the skies, appearing beside me, only to find himself bound. Slap. I smacked him across his leathery bald head with such force that it spun halfway around, flesh tearing on his nape. He teleported back out, setting his head back in place. This time he grew out his rivets, shooting them at me before disappearing, as I used the key to bar the air, stopping them. With a massive thud, he appeared behind me, shattering the ground beneath me, expecting me to fall straight into his fist. Unfortunately for him, I stood on the air, immobilizing my shoes, as the momentum drained from his fist instantly. I turned around and kicked him in the stomach, prolapsing his hernia, as a look of genuine shock raced across his face like a curtain falling at the end of a play. Come on. You can do better, I said, as he fired off a storm at a nearby building, destroying it, creating a dead zone in my sight, only to have more eyes projected onto the rubble. By now he had realized that long-range attacks won't work because I had barriers, and short-range bum rushing won't work because I could stop him instantly. So his next choice was obvious. Ugh! He groaned in frustration, increasing his strength even further and circling around me. A wall of wind built up into a tornado as he ran higher and higher, leaving me in an ever-closing eye of the storm. Ooh! Nice plan. Suffocate me and then rip apart my body. He probably assumed I couldn't spot him in the storm, thus freeing him from being immobilized. Too bad, I very well could. Just as he reached a crescendo, his muscles ripping at their seams, the storm wall just inches from me, ripping apart my shirt, I immobilized him, dissipating the tornado. An ear-to-ear grin spread eagle on my face. Ah! Shattering people's hopes is such an orgasmic feeling. Seeing that look of despair on his face, feels so good. Like a bolt of joy out the blue. I climbed up the air, to where he stood stuck, panting. He looked at me with great indignation, grinding his teeth. Weren't you talking about killing the symbol of peace? What happened to your bravado, Mr. Big Bad Wolf? I said, cradling his chin and pinching his nose. Brat! I'll kill you! He shouted, shaking violently as his muscles continued to heal. Oh ho ho ho! You mean you'll try, don't you? Just like you've been trying to land a blow on me for the past 3 minutes. I teased. Die! He cried, opening his mouth wide, as his teeth shot forth. Moonfish's quirk. When did he even have time to copy it? Doesn't matter, it's not like he could even scratch me with that. Immediately, I immobilized them all, stuck in golden rings, pushing against his gums, causing his mouth to bleed out. He began coughing violently, his bleeding gums choking his windpipe. Try again, I said, jumping back down. As soon as I landed, he teleported out before settling a ways from me, scanning the field for something. Right. Shoto. He was still here, wasn't he? I muttered, spotting him behind a collapsed wall, as did AFO. He zipped over, trying to use him as a hostage. Unhoo-ha. Not so fast, I said, wagging a finger, like at an impertinent child, immobilizing him, before pulling Shoto towards me using remote control. AFO escaped again, shooting air shots at me, before teleporting an entire skyscraper off. I can already see where this is going, and as if to affirm my suspicions, a puddle of floating black goo appeared above me, dropping the building onto me and Shoto. TCH. I said, immobilizing the building, before dragging Shoto out of the impact radius. That's when AFO reached me, attempting to land a spiked punch into my stomach with his right hand, and with his other, an air cannon onto my chin. I sighed. This guy. He'll never learn, will he? I sidestepped the shot, bending around it like Ty Lee, and immobilized the punch for the briefest of moments, putting Shoto down. Grabbing his fist, I slid a foot by him, judo throwing him full force into the building and undoing the binding on it. The building came crashing down upon him, crushing AFO within, the weight of a 3,000 tons of concrete bearing down on him. I could see his spine shatter into a dozen pieces like a Pez candy stack, and his blood pooling beneath the rubble. Somehow, with all that, he still wasn't dead. Truly amazing. No wonder, he's the big bad of the series. And as if to spite me, he wriggled back up, teleporting out of the rubble. A puddle of black goo reappeared on the other edge of the crater, and AFO dropped out, landing face first onto the hard cement floor. His muscles knit and his bones set back in place, almost as if his body was rewinding itself. That's some regeneration right there. Even more powerful than Haruto's. He stood back up, glaring at me. Clenching his fist, he puffed up again, like Luffy in Gear 4, a singular, thick, throbbing, riveted spike emerging from his forearm, coiled upon itself to reinforce it, crouching as he geared up for one last punch to end it all. You want one last punch? I'll give you one last punch then, baby. I shouted, smiling madly. He stomped the ground, shattering it, and then using air cannon, built up a dust cloud, blowing it across the field of combat, before launching himself at me. Aho! Looks like someone learned from Bakugo, huh? Of course, he wouldn't actually hit me. I stepped fluidly to the side, moonwalking backwards, as he zipped past me. What? He muttered, gawking like cockatoo. What? I replied, did you actually think I was stupid enough to take your punch head on, idiot? He ground his teeth in anger as he attempted to use air cannon to slow his momentum, preventing himself from crashing headfirst into the crater wall. He teetered back to his feet, stumbling all the way, as he turned to me. Now that you're done, it's my turn, right? And I'm a man of my word. So I'll end this in one punch. Consider it a complimentary service on my part, I said, grabbing my enchanted key out of the air, twisting it clockwise with a singular target. The air around me crackled, as arcs of lightning danced across the concrete floor as the air between me and AFO disassembled, creating a vacuum tunnel. AFO, who was still getting stably back onto his feet, got swept up, rocketing through the vacuum tube of air at a blinding speed. On my end, I concentrated all of remote control's power on my fist, causing it to glow a bright dazzling blue, as all circuitous veins overlapped across each other. Taking the pose of another famous baldy, I uttered the last words AFO would hear. Special Series, Vacuum Nutcracker. I landed a punch, right through his groin, crushing his pelvis to pieces, pushing his ribcage through his heart and cracking his skull, lining it with microfractures as he flew off, crashing into the very same building he was trying to avoid just seconds earlier. With that done, I turned to the camera, raising my fist, victorious. Cheers rang out across the city, as the news chopper landed in the crater. I turned to face the camera and smiled wide and bright, making sure to show off the full glory of my muscles. I'd worked hard for these rock-hard abs, and doggone it, I'm gonna show them off. Besides, it never hurts to have stans drooling over you, especially as a hero. I gave a short interview to the news crew and the police, where, with All Might's help, I barely avoided jail time. Well, that and the favor of literally the entire populace. No politician would dare imprison me, lest they risk getting ousted by scandal and revolt. And with that, the ordeal was done. Mission accomplished. Become the new symbol of peace. In the HPSC headquarters, a secret meeting was taking place. The nomes we captured are the same as the ones formed before. Completely inhumane and unresponsive. I doubt we'll get anything from them, the secretary announced. What about the warehouse? And the bar? The branch head asked. We're still investigating it, sir. The warehouse and the bar were under unknown shell companies linked somewhere in the Middle East. We have no information about their owners or whereabouts. Any data that might have been in them is too damaged to be of use since they were blown away in the fight. The secretary read out. Any personal information on this all for one guy? A branch head asked. We're still investigating it, sir. The secretary answered. And what of this Derby fellow? Is he really who he says he is? And what does he know about our secret training camps? We're still INV. If you say you're still investigating one more time, I'll rip your head off. The supervisor groaned, rubbing his temple in worry. Even if we were able to capture the nomes, Shigaraki and his league got away. An advisor commented. Yeah. Even if we were to grade ourselves really easy on this, we still got away with a draw due to injury. A younger superintendent added. Idiots. The branch head interjected. We traded in the symbol of peace. All Might's weakness has been exposed to the world, and there is no longer a symbol of peace that will never be defeated. Not for the citizens or for the villains. The administrative head rubbed his hands together and replied, leaning back. That's what happens when you rely on just one person. Everyone has realized how far you can get just by gathering a bunch of idiots. That scares me. The branch head continued. From our initial profiling, Shigaraki was a man-child who'd throw tantrums when something didn't go his way, but this Kamino incident, with the hostages. That was far too clever to be the same guy. That means the man-child is growing up at a frightening pace. The more plans he comes up with, the more circuitous they become. Like he's poking society to see what makes it tick. With every failure, the League grows stronger, expands its influence and weakens ours. But we still have him. Haru Shikimori. He can be the new symbol of peace. The public already considers him one. Not only is he more skilled than All Might but also more intelligent. Surely he's the solution to our problem. The young superintendent suggested. The boy who wants to destroy hero society. How is he any better than Shigaraki? The admin head shouted. For one, he's on our side. The superintendent shot back. Calm down you two. This isn't a matter of whether Haru Shikimori can do it or even if he wants to do it. This is whether we have the time for him to grow up into one. He's too young, barely a first year. Even if he gets his license this year, it won't matter if we can't capture the League. No, we must capture them. We have no time to be sitting around, acting like the villain reception squad. The branch head said. Something must change. Meanwhile in the Shikimori household another debate waged on. No. Mama Shikimori said, setting her foot down. Yeah. Haru stays here. Imiko added. Come on, Imiko-chan, Mama, I have to do this. I pleaded, looking at my father, who just shrugged. We're really sorry for what happened to you and what your family has had to go through. But this is important. Really so. And we promise we'll take care of our students to the best of our abilities. Aizawa-sensei requested. I've seen your best, and frankly, with the amount of times my dear, little Haru has landed in the hospital just this year, I'm inclined to decline. Mama Shikimori replied. Yeah. Imiko added, puffing up like a hamster. I can't say anything about that. All I can say is that I've failed as a teacher and I hope that you'll give us another chance. Please, for the future of the world. Aizawa-sensei said, hesitating and steeling himself before he continued. Haru is the single most talented student we've had in the history of UA. He is already regarded as the next symbol of peace. We know the world cannot afford to lose him right now. If not for us then for the future of your grandchildren, please. Aizawa-sensei got onto the floor and sat in a doxa, adding, please, give us the opportunity to raise him into a fine hero. Mama Shikimori thought for a moment, looking at Eri and Haruto, more Eri than Haruto, but who's counting? Then she replied. If you insist that much, then yes. But he must visit us every weekend. And you have to keep an eye on him. Yeah. Make sure he doesn't get too adventurous, in all respects. Imiko added. Aizawa-sensei raised an eyebrow, looking first at Imiko, then at me, and nodded to her. A bit too enthusiastically. Dang it. Imiko's really acting like the old ball and chain already. I shudder to think what'd happen after we marry. Will I even be allowed to talk to other women in professional settings? And why are you agreeing with her, Aizawa-sensei? That's it guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel if you like it. And tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation.